I have so much new drugstore makeup that I am so eager to try on my face today, so really, let's just jump straight into it. Starting with this, Milani came out with their own version of bronzer drops. This is the Conceal Plus Perfect Sun-Kissed Liquid Bronzing Drops. These come in 3 shades, and I'm going to be trying the light shade. Now, this is actually quite expensive for drugstore. These are $16.99, but if they're good, that's definitely way less than all the products that it's trying to dupe. So I did grab my Drunk Elephant Deep Bronzy, so we can try shade comparisons actually. Okay, already very different. This is the Deep Bronzy and this is the Milani in Light. I do have the Milani in Medium though. Let me try that one. Okay, I did the medium one right here. And it's a little bit closer, but what I can already see, let me kind of blend these out a tiny bit. Okay, we've got the light, the medium, and the Drunk Elephant. The Milani one is way less glittery than most of the other ones on the market. So we're gonna try the light one today, and Milani recommends mixing it in with something. That's the way a lot of these bronzer drops are used. So I'm just gonna mix it in with some moisturizer. So let's do like, I don't know, approximately 2 drops. And then try to get this mixed up. You know what it's actually reminding me of? The Makeup by Mario liquid bronzer, the one that, you know, it's kind of designed to work as bronzer drops or as a liquid bronzer. This is reminding me of that in terms of like the finish, but maybe slightly more glowy. I also did a few swatch comparisons. You can see colors next to other really popular bronzer drops right now. So I started with the Makeup by Mario bronzer in the shade Fair compared to the light Milani. Here's what they look like on their own. And then I also wanted to compare what they look like sheared out a little bit because I do feel like they have a similar level of sheerness to them. And then I also wanted to compare to the Glow Recipe Hue Drops. Now, these just come in 1 shade, so I did go ahead and compare it next to both the light and the medium from Milani. And then this is what they look like blended out a little bit. And then this is what they look like blended out a lot. I would say the Hue Drops are closest in color to the medium from Milani, but the undertone is quite a bit different because the Hue Drops have a little bit more red to the base. Also, the Hue Drops don't need to be mixed, and the Milani is recommended to be mixed with something else. It's looking nice. I wasn't expecting to like this because, like I said, I don't generally like these bronzing drop type of products, but this one, because it is a little bit less shiny, I think it looks a lot more natural on the skin. I also like that it comes in 3 shades because a lot of the higher end ones just have 1 shade, so hopefully you'll be able to find a good match. Also, I am filming in a relatively new setting today. This is my 2nd time filming with this setup. I had a lot of really good feedback in my last video that I filmed in this setup because I did just move apartments. So I'm trying to film with mostly natural light today, but it is raining and so the clouds are coming like in and out. So I do have a little bit of light to fill, but we're doing as much natural light as we can. But actually right now the sun is here. Okay, adjusted that because I felt like we were getting too bright with the sun. But I like the way this looks. I think it ended up helping my face match my body a little bit because my face was slightly lighter than my body because, well, I've been really diligent with my sunscreen on my body as well, but I still just feel like my face is a little bit paler. So now we're all evened out and we're going to go in with the e.l.f. Soft Glam Satin Foundation. I haven't been loving this, if I'm being so honest. It's okay, but it has not become a staple favorite foundation the way that I expected it to, but the shade I'm wearing is 13 Fair Neutral. Find it can look a little bit just heavy and makeup-y, and I can see it on the skin, especially like around my nose. I can really see where it sits on top of like any little like hairs on my face. I find it to be really visible there. If I was comparing it to another foundation for reference, it would be the NYX Bear With Me Blur foundation. I find it to be quite similar to that one, where it's very matte and blurring, but almost too much, where up close, like it definitely looks makeup-y. And speaking of, I'm actually gonna use a little bit, of the corresponding concealer. I have mine in the shade Vanilla. Okay, now for the NYX Buttermelt. I picked up one of the blushes. I've had the bronzer. I've been raving about the bronzer. I have my bronzer in the shade Buttercup, so we will use this to bronze my face, but the one that's new to me is the blush. I picked up the shade Butta together. And I'm really eager to try this out because I have loved the bronzer so much. So let's do just a little bit of the bronzer first. I have to be careful because mine is broken. These really are incredibly fragile, like it doesn't take much. But I feel like the foundation was a little too pale for me anyway, so we'll definitely try to bring some warmth back with this bronzer. This formula is nice because it's just so soft. It's very, very pigmented, but not in a way that makes it challenging to blend. Sometimes powder products that are really soft and high pigment are impossible to blend. Think of like, do you remember the Subculture palette from years ago? That was an example of like, it's a little too much of too much. This, I think, offers that high pigment and that soft formula, but it blends out like butter. The name is so appropriate. Like, I feel like it just ends up looking seamless. You can't even really see where I put the product. I just look a little bit bronzier. Okay, so the blush. I couldn't decide between shades, and I've been less about this shade of pink lately, but for some reason this was still really calling to me against everything else in the line. And they do have a lot of pink shades. They didn't have as many nudes as I would like. Like, I would have ideally picked up like a really nude or maybe even a peach. They had some peaches, but they were leaning a lot more like saturated orangey. So I did go with this one. I'm assuming, oh, it's actually a little bit different texture, I would say, already than the bronzer. With the bronzer, I would not be able to like put that much on my brush. Wait a minute. Okay, let's try this. Because like I said, the bronzer is super highly pigmented, and so you don't need to pick up a ton on the brush. This, I feel like, seems to be slightly more pressed into the pan, which is probably good because hopefully that will make it less fragile, but I am getting good pigment from this. It has a little bit of a sheen. Do you see that like minor luminosity to it? That's what I also really like about the bronzer. Like, you don't really see sparkle particles, but it gives this life to the skin. Like, it has the most subtle highlighter quality to it without actually being like metallic or shimmery. Okay, I'm liking this, and the color is very bright, extremely pigmented, and this is the lightest shade, but I still feel like I'm getting a ton of payoff from it. I wanted to do a swatch comparison of Just Enough from Patrick Ta. I know that one is super popular, and I kept thinking this reminded me so much of it. And it's definitely closer to the shade that the cream blush is from the Duo. The powder is a little bit more purple or even blue in the base, but I feel like it kind of gives a similar effect on the cheeks to the way it would look if you layered the powder and the cream. So not an exact dupe, but a really good alternative at basically a fourth of the price. What I've been doing lately too is taking my sponge that I applied my foundation with that will still have some residual foundation and tapping over everything, which I've done in the past if I feel like I will get too much blush, I need to tone it down, but lately I've been enjoying this to bring some of the life back. The way I can describe it, it acts similarly to the Patrick Ta method. You know how his technique is taking the powder first and then applying the cream on top, and the cream kind of brings the powder back to life? I really feel like doing this, and if there's just like the tiniest little remnants of foundation, basically just like some dewiness and a little bit of pigment, taking that and tapping over it brings back the life and like softens up the powdery look, and it just adds this glow. Like, I swear it's giving me the same effect as the Patrick Ta. Okay, I just brought us very zoomed in so we can do eyes now. I picked this up from CoverGirl. It is a single shadow, basically. They call it the eye enhancer, but they were describing this as a mono palette. Instead of like a duo or a trio, they're calling this a mono. I would call it a single shadow, but I guess both do make sense. But when I found this on the Ulta website, it just had this one singular shade available. It's called Rose Beam, and this just felt so nostalgic to me. Like, I remember buying CoverGirl products in this same little cheap flimsy packaging with the sponge applicator. Like, I remember buying these in my childhood, and I'm like, you know what, let's see, how is the formula looking today? Like, this is new. They also came out with a few other palettes that are also in this same size of packaging, but some of them have a different number of shades. I actually want to use the included sponge applicator because the thing about these types of applicators is that They make a shimmer or a metallic like really, really punchy. So let's try that. All I have on my eyelid right now is a little bit of the concealer from earlier. And normally I would pair this with, or first I would do an eyeshadow primer. But I really feel like with this type of product, the person that's buying this is probably going for something very simple. Like I just would imagine if you're buying this palette, you maybe don't want to go into all the steps of like also needing a primer and another shadow. Like it's supposed to be just like a really simple one and done product. So that's how we're going to try to use it today and see if we like that result. It's kind of frosty as you're seeing. It's pretty light. And I think it looks pretty, but I would wonder how this would look on other skin tones. It's not so pigmented, like there's some sheerness to it, which I think could save it on different skin tones. But I will say, even on my pale skin, it almost looks a little bit frosty. I just don't know if it would be too light on someone else, but it looks so pretty. Like, do you see this color? I really like how simple and satin that is, and it's applying really well with the applicator here. Like I don't mind this. So it's definitely on the subtle side, but I think I like it for that because it's something I could see myself wearing for every day. It's not too much. I think you could also throw some bronzer in the crease. Actually, let's try that. We'll take the same one from NYX. You know, if you wanted to do a simple, quick extra step, pairing it with this shadow, you could just easily run some of this through, and I think that would add a little bit more dimension to the eye and almost complete it while still being a really easy everyday look. Yeah, I like that. I think that just added enough to kind of tie it together. So the mascara is not brand new to me. You've seen me use this actually in my last 3 videos, but it is a newer release, and this is the CoverGirl Eye Enhancer Mascara. They launched this in 3 shades. There is a standard brown, a black, and then this burgundy brown. And I haven't switched over fully to burgundy mascara. I still think brown mascara is more my preference, but this shade I think makes eyes pop so much. Like there's just something about that red undertone that will pull out any greens that you have in your eyes. It's not my favorite formula personally. I find it a little bit too wet, but you know, if you like that, you might enjoy it. But because it is so wet, I find that it doesn't hold a curl at all. Like I didn't even bother to curl my lashes just now because it just unravels them instantly. It's decent for volume. I prefer length though, so I just wouldn't say this is my preference for a mascara, but I could see someone else liking it. I also just did a short or a Instagram reel comparing the burgundy to brown mascara. So I'll show you that in case you were kind of wondering what that minor difference looks like. Like I do see a little bit of a difference. I think the burgundy makes the eyes pop a little bit more, but I like that the brown is obviously more natural. I also wanted to throw in swatch comparisons here for reference as well against 2 other warm brown mascaras that I recommend pretty often. So one is at a much higher price point. It is the Rudi Berry collaboration with Bubble, the chocolate dipped tubing mascara. And then the other one is super affordable. It is the Essence Lash Without Limits in the shade Brown. So I wanted to show these so you can see just how burgundy the CoverGirl one is, even against these other brown ones. Even the Rudi brown, which has a lot of warmth to it, looks so brown and almost neutral compared to how almost purple the CoverGirl is pulling. Okay, so just a little bit of powder. I feel like I could use some right in here. So this is the this is the Colourpop Pretty Fresh powder. I'm so close to using this up. Every day I'm like getting a little bit further. I do like this one. It is a little bit more subtle. It's not super heavy duty powder, but I do like it for that, just kind of like finish off the face. I don't know if this is being discontinued though, because every time I go to link it at Ulta, it's like half off. So I guess that's good if you can get it half off, but I don't know if it's gonna be sticking around, unfortunately. Now this I haven't heard that many people talking about. This is new from e.l.f. They launched SPF lip glosses. So I picked mine up in the shade Blush Much, ? That's the name of it. And this is SPF 25. It's the Sun Bum Gloss. And I'm really curious about this, if it's gonna smell, if it's gonna be thick. Like okay, it does smell like sunscreen, sort of. I have another SPF lip gloss. It is from Vacation, you know, the sunscreen brand, and I like that one, but it's more of a lip oil. Like, it's very thin and it sets down quickly, so I'm curious to see how this compares to it. First, I am going to apply a tiny bit of lip liner. This is Cappuccino from Rimmel, but I'm going to use it very, very lightly so we can go in with this gloss now. Okay, I feel like, do I have to apply a lot to get sun protection? You know, with sunscreen, if you don't wear enough, you're not going to get the protection. Like, that's why I was curious about this, because I would imagine it would have to be kind of thick to actually be working. It's not so thick. All the shades seemed really pigmented though, and I tend to prefer a much more sheer gloss, something like a lip oil really, and don't know if I love this or the shade. No, it's pretty, and it matches the blush. The whole look is going together. I feel like the eyeshadow shade, the blush, the lipstick, all these colors are very well coordinated, especially even with like the Burgundy mascara. We went very pink today. I really like this eyeshadow. I'm excited to use this more. You know, the packaging may not be super glamorous. It definitely feels cheap. And if anything, you know, $5.99 for this was maybe a little more than I was expecting. I feel like $3.99 maybe, but the shadow just looks so pretty on my eye. And again, that was with no primer or anything. I just think it looks so smooth and satin-like. This is the final look. I feel like everything was pretty good. No actual duds today. I don't know if so many of them are major standouts, but everything worked pretty well. So I will get back to you with final thoughts in a future video, but thank you so much for watching, and I will go ahead and see you on my next one. Bye.